So this is probably the first and maybe the last non-narration recording I'll do, but I really want to do this one because of the David Firth series online called Salad Fingers. I know it's an older series and new episodes don't really come out that often like they used to, but they posted every episode on the YouTube channel in just one video, so I was watching it and I kind of picked up on things I never really picked on before because it used to be just creepy ass shit you watch very late at night, and then it just became weird shit you watch late at night. But rewatching it, I picked up on some things, including I'm pretty sure that Salad Fingers has multiple personality disorder, which now has been dubbed as dissociative identity disorder. Basically, I think his 3 finger puppets are his different personalities. I think the one he calls Jeremy Fisher would be closest related to his normal personality because of something I'll explain later on. But his more malevolent one, whose name I can't remember, the white puppet with just the white ball puppet he has. But you notice that anytime he gets that puppet out, he says that it tastes disgusting, and then he sees it a lot when he has his blackouts, and then he wakes up and something bad's happened. Also, I'm pretty sure rusted objects and blood are triggers, because a lot of people with dissociative disorders do have triggers that make a personality come out. And in Salad Fingers' case, I think that touching rusted objects, which he's obsessed with, is one way, and because of the smell, the copper smell, it reminds him of blood, which is a major trigger for him, because when he made himself bleed and said when the red water comes out, he went into his little fantasy place and he saw his friends, who obviously are just figments of his imagination, and of course when he came to, something had happened. And also another theory I have that I'll talk more about is he's possibly a child murderer and maybe a child molester. I'm not swearing to that second part, but the first part I definitely think is true, because of the first episode we see him wander into that mutated but probably in reality normal looking child's house, and the only thing he does other than make the child seem really nervous is he just starts touching rusted objects, and then the episode ends. In the next episode, we see he's baking a fish in the oven, and he looks outside and sees a boy who's probably about his teen years because he had a Letterman jacket on, and he asks the boy to come inside because he had a supple, nice figure. Then he blacked out because he stabbed himself on the rusted hook, and he saw the white puppet when he was blacked out, and when he came to, the boy was gone and there was smoke coming out of the oven, and he said that the fish was done, signaling that while he was blacked out, one of his personalities took over and had cooked the child, and then he ended up eating him. And the Nettles episode, for the most part, that episode's really confusing, but if you go with the fact that Salad Fingers does not live in reality at all, he has no grounds in it, and I think that's part of the reason he does live so far in the middle of nowhere, because in a way, legally, it's safer for him. But, you see him collecting nettles because he likes them, and then he finds the baby carriage, and to him it's empty, and to him he's putting nettles in it, and then you see an angry person freaking the fuck out because the carriage is gone. And I'm pretty sure it's because he just stole that person's baby. They follow him to his house, see him sitting shirtless and rubbing nettles on his chest, and the person gets even more enraged by what they're seeing, which is making you wonder if that's not really a plant that he's playing with, then it's that person's baby, which of course led to the person pounding on the door with their head until they died, which could have actually been what happened, or maybe he killed them, but they showed it that way because he wasn't coherent when it happened. But then he thinks that, you know, he just puts them in his imaginary world and keeps the body, like, as one of his friends. And then the one episode, which is the reason I think he is a child murderer or molester, especially the molestation thing, it's like the only reason I really think that, is the episode where the little boy with the black eyes and like the head that's all stitched up like it had been cut open and sewed back up. But when that little boy starts following him, he seems like nervous the fucking second he saw that kid. Like he knew him, and just the kid was infatuated with him when everybody else seems to just be there or try to get away from him because he's just fucking weird. But I mean, that kid knew he liked rusted objects. The kid knew where his house was. The kid put him in a box with rusted bars. And also when he was in the box, he started making hand motions with the bars that basically symbolized masturbation. So there's that. I'm also kind of thinking because, like, just how the kid was so sexually obsessed with him and how fucking freaked out he was in response to it, and saying he didn't like this game anymore and he just disappeared because he was done. I think maybe none of that episode happened. It was just some weird form of hallucination for him. Like, a part of his mind was making him remember something he'd done. Like, that was one of the children he tortured and ended up killing, and that's why their heads stitched up, because maybe he, like, fucking decapitated them, lobotomized them, or some shit like that. So in a weird way, his conscience is haunting him that he did this to this kid and other children. So now it's basically like this kid's obsessing with him like he'd been obsessed with him before he killed him. And another episode is when you see him with for the cartoon, a very normal looking little girl, but her face is beat up, she has blood and dirt and just looks really unhealthy. But she's sitting with him and, like, you know, it seems so normal, but at the same time eerie. And then when she talks, he freaks the fuck out, and she says that he doesn't like her mouth words. So I'm thinking maybe she's a kid, one of the kids he does keep. Maybe he's prone to keeping girls longer than the boys. And maybe she had just kind of come to a realization at that point that maybe he wouldn't hurt her, or he wouldn't hurt her anymore. So she felt safe to talk, but then he freaked out and most likely ended up killing her as well. And then one of the episodes where he hides in his shelter because the radio is saying really terrible things to him, and he starts collecting hairs and touching them on himself. One of the hairs came really close to matching the little girl's hair. It just, all different colors hair for a character that obviously doesn't have hair and definitely wouldn't match any of those colors. So that made me wonder. And also the little room he was staying in seemed like a place he'd been keeping people, for there to be signs like that, torn cloth and hair from different people. So maybe he locked people in there when he was playing with them, when one of his personalities was playing with them anyway. The episode with his brother who went away to the war, and then he found him. In actuality, it was a decrepit corpse buried in his yard, which probably, again, was one of his victims. And there is a slight possibility that the corpse may have actually belonged to his brother, because usually to have a dissociative disorder, something had to trigger it and create it. Something really traumatizing you don't remember. So there's a possibility that maybe he'd been molested when he was younger, maybe by multiple people, and he created the personalities to escape from that. And maybe that's why he does all the shit he does. And of course, in that episode, you also see him insinuating he wants his brother to come into his room and basically have sex with him in the middle of the night. I mean, unless he was making it somebody else, then that means that maybe that was a hint that whether that corpse was his brother at one point or not, that he had a sexual relationship with his brother. The episode where that black gunk pops out of his stomach, I really don't know about that, unless maybe at some point he did get married when he was slightly less off in the head, and maybe he got rid of the child because the mother died or some shit like that. I'm really not sure. The episode after that, which is the last one, Birthday, we see the angry parent from the Nettles episode, except now their corpse is completely rotted, and also it's the birthday of the malevolent personality puppet he has. And we end up seeing his obsession with horses, which I still don't totally understand that either. But you see him go into the woods because he needs a doctor for somebody. So he goes, and you get a new puppet, which is this terrifying, like something out of Puppet Master little fucker with all these hooks and these sharp teeth like a piranha. And, you know, basically when the doctor puppet's checking him over, it's kind of like you're watching a setup to a medical porno, because it's like, you know, check me over thoroughly and all this shit. And when it started kissing, biting his neck, he started making moaning sounds and kind of laying down like, you know, bomb chicka wow wow time or some shit. So, and then it bit him and he threw the puppet, and then it landed on the horse and started digging into its side and eating it. And basically what he told the horse was something along the lines of, just relax, don't pay attention to it. I know it hurts. It'll be over soon though. Which, the way he said it was just so sad and kind of sober. Like, another hint towards he was possibly molested by an adult or an older person when he was growing up. And it was somebody he trusted and definitely knew. And it was probably more than once. So, I think that was another hint. And the episode does end with, you see other versions of him, and they're all severely mutilated, and they're like zombie-like, and they're eating flesh, and it sort of has an Alice in Wonderland feeling, because you just have this table set up like one of the Mad Hatter's tea parties, and then him at the head of it, and he's talking like he knows all these people who are obviously him. Maybe they're versions of him that died, not literally, but figuratively, through things that have happened to them as he's gotten older. And of course, he opens a box, and inside is the skin of the angry parent from the Nettles episode, but now it's in the shape of a top hat. And basically, it ends with him wearing it and sitting at the head of the Mad Hatter's table with his very physically mutilated doubles or deceased personalities. And in one episode, we did see him kill supposedly Jeremy Fisher, but Jeremy Fisher turned into him, and he ended up eating his own brains. Which, I don't think they showed Jeremy Fisher puppet after that episode, so I think that was like symbolic of him killing one of his personalities. And of course, the female personality seems to be when, like in the episode with his brother, he put on the dress and he was a girl and he was singing on stage. So I think maybe that's like a feminine coddling side he needs to keep himself kind of sane, or as sane as he can be. And of course, the other personality is purely violent. But I think like the last episode might have symbolized him giving over to complete insanity. Like, sort of knowing, because there's always hints that something that you can't hear is telling him what he's done or showing him, and he always denied it and said it was all lies and all this shit. He needed to get away from it or wash bad thoughts away and shit like that. So it's kind of like, maybe in the birthday episode it's sort of just like, I'm okay with this, I realize what I've done, and I kind of like it. So, I don't know, I've had a shit ton of theories about this show each time I've gotten into watching it again. But that's my latest theory. I don't know how accurate it is, and there's a shit ton of stuff I don't remember, don't know what it's called, or the names or anything. But yeah, that's my Salad Fingers theory. If anybody has anything they want to add or references, that would be cool and it's totally welcome, and I probably won't corrupt my channel with any more pointless videos of me rambling about shows.